Hello, my name is Christian Howard. This is Medical Physiology 1020. Um, this is week 3 presentation. I chose the peripheral nervous system sensory receptors and how they are linked to the central nervous system. Here's my name and date of birth. Okay, so this is my title slide. Just want to comment on this photo real briefly because I think it's a really cool photo, and I think it's a really good real life depiction of the peripheral nervous system connecting to the central nervous system, spine, and brain. You can see that the nerves go out to the receptors in the skin, and they travel to the central nervous system, spine, and up to the brain. You can see that some nerves are far more thick, like the sciatic nerve, than other nerves. But I just thought this was a good photo, and here we go. All right, so there are 4 main categories of sensory receptors. I have them listed here: chemical receptors, mechanical receptors, photoreceptors, and thermoreceptors. There are more subcategories within each of these, but these are the 4 main groupings. Over here we have different nerves. We have a very simple nerve with 3 nerve endings. We have a mechanical receptor up here that I'll talk about in another slide. We have a cell here that's using neurotransmitters. What we don't have here, or what isn't shown, is myelinated sheaths. And within those myelinated sheaths, these nodes of Ranvier, which I guess help the action potential travel down the nerve. Chemical receptors. What these do are detect chemicals in our external and internal environment. The classic case are our taste buds, and within our taste buds there are many different cells that sense that sense different tastes like sweetness, sourness, salty, savory, bitter, and these use neurotransmitters, many different neurotransmitters, to transmit signals, eventually up to the central nervous system and brain. These can use action potentials, or chemical receptors can use action potentials in different cases if it's a neuron. But in the case of taste, it's neurotransmitters, which can pass the membrane through endocytosis, using vesicles, or gated channels as well. But other chemical receptors in our body are receptors that sense oxygen content in our bloodstream, or for that matter, carbon dioxide content in our bloodstream. This is an autonomic process, and it sends signals to our central nervous system. All right, the next category I'll talk about is mechanical receptors. These are typically found in the skin, but not always. They can be found in other tissues, like the blood vessels. In that case, what these do is they sense an increase in pressure of the blood vessel, which results in the blood vessel stretching. And the receptors, these baroreceptors, sense that pressure. But one other type of receptor I'll talk about that was talked about in our lectures are the Pacchian corpuscle, which responds to pressure on the skin or the release of pressure, and it's mostly gross pressure. But these use action potentials, otherwise known as depolarization of the membrane, to send signals up through the central nervous system and to the brain. Also, another type of receptor that's a mechanical receptor I have here is hair cells. Hair cells on our inner ear, because sound waves are actually pressure waves, and when the sound goes into our ear, it creates pressure on our inner ear. So that would make receptors of our inner ear pressure receptors. Okay, next receptor type I'll talk about are photoreceptors. There are three different types. There are rods, cones, and ganglion. The rods are more sensitive in low light conditions, so night vision. Cones are daytime vision, or what allows us to see colors. The ganglion are interesting in that they are sensitive to light, and they have a lot to do with the pupillary reflex, pupil dilation, and pupil constriction. They have effects on our circadian rhythm, and our hormone production, melatonin production as well. Something interesting about photoreceptors is that when they are excited, they actually are hyperpolarized instead of depolarized, which is, I guess, not the normal means of how signal transduction happens. But in this case, it is. But yeah, these same way, peripheral through down to the spine, to the central nervous system, and brain. All right, the next type of receptor I'll talk about are thermoreceptors or temperature receptors. These sense temperatures in our environment. These are simple receptors mostly found within our skin, with free nerve endings. And what this this picture shows is that the warmth receptors are typically deeper in the skin than the cold receptors. But cold receptors contain or are made up of unmyelinated C fibers and thinly myelinated A fibers. And C fibers are C fibers have a low conductivity, and A fibers have a higher conductivity speed. So these receptors use action potentials. They travel from the peripheral nervous system to the central nervous system to the brain. All right, this is just a summary slide. So basically, our peripheral nervous system, they sense changes in our environment using peripheral receptors and send signals to the central nervous system uh, by means of depolarization or neurotransmitters. Um, they can go direct through cranial nerves, like in the case of the sense of smell, which I have pictured here. That is one of the only uh, processes that does not go through the thalamus. It can be autonomic processes, like visceral reflexes or changes in our blood pressure. Um, but yeah, the essentially the peripheral nervous system sends signals from our environment to the central nervous system. Um, so I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you for listening.